Celebrating 50, I think over 50 years, so something went right, so, you know.
One of the great things I thought about meeting the Liu family was thinking about how I grew up in my family and how that related to me. My family moved away from where they originally started, and we ended up in a place where it was not as easy to be attached to the extended family. I think they're so fortunate here to be able to have the grandparents in the home, because I actually asked the question to Mr. Liu's father to ask him if he had retired or what he did here. He and his wife told me that their job here was to take care of the grandchildren, and that's something that I feel like I sort of missed out on. And so I think that's just so special and important, that the culture here just really binds the family together, which is completely different, I think, from the way things are in America. The Liu family, because there was only the husband and wife in the beginning here, only were able to lease about 1 acre of land to begin this vineyard. But as this shift in socialism happened and capitalism started to rise here in this area of China, they were able to acquire larger pieces of land, and
they prospered enough, and eventually now they have about 17 acres of land where they grow grapes, which is their main income. But they also grow peaches and pears and figs and tomatoes and flowers. It's beautiful here. It's your standard paradise. So. After we dined and they brought out all their favorite dishes, which were unbelievable. Actually, all the food came pretty much from their land, so maybe that's why it tastes so good. But after we dined, I had the opportunity to sketch the grandfather. And as I moved around his figure, I came to his hands, and I love drawing hands. Drawing hands to me is one of the best parts of the human anatomy. It's where everything happens for a human. It's our action point. And his hands were so beautiful, it was humbling, and it made me nervous to draw them, and I actually felt myself struggling through it. Kind of like the Jade Gate Pass. The texture that you see in that and how difficult it is to render that is how I view hands. And they're just that subtle, so if you don't pay attention, then you miss what they stand for, what they're attempting to tell you.
I was sketching the grandmother, and during that time she would look over at me, I think just to see if I was doing okay and how things were going with my sketch. And then she would just kind of look back, and I just would smile, and she would smile back at me, and it was just kind of a nice exchange.
Do you think it looks like you? Once I finished sketching, I decided to give the drawing to the grandpa. I think he said that it looked like him, which most people don't ever think that their portraits look like them. So I think that was a good thing. And afterwards, he held on to it and walked around with it. It seemed like he at least appreciated it. I don't know, it felt really good to give it to him.
It was great to be able to meet a traditional family in the sense that I don't think that there's a lot of traditional families necessarily left in the U.S. Americans put a lot of times the elderly in homes or things like that. From what I've seen here, and definitely in the rural areas, that is not obviously something that happens at all. They take care of everyone takes care of each other. And I think that's pretty special.
Tomorrow we're going to go to an art school here in Dunhuang. We'd go to a class and sit in and everything. One of the classes that we might go into is a calligraphy class, because that's kind of standard here in China.
Today was a lot of fun. We got to go to and participate at the Dunhuang Art Training School.
The director of the school, Professor Hu, was kind enough to let us look around and sit in on some of the classes and interact with some of the students. So the school offers 4 subjects. The First being English, second art, which is actually divided into two: traditional Chinese painting and drawing, calligraphy, and kung fu.
We started our experience today by joining a class of some very young students that were learning English.
As we were walking towards the class, it was pretty, noisy. There was like all this shouting. And I had no idea, but the second we walked in, I realized they were shouting English words. They were saying nose and mouth. And in unison, it was unrecognizable, but the energy of the delivery was beautiful. Okay, class, this is a pen. Pen.
This is a book.
At the end of the English class, one of the kids asked if they could take a picture with us, and once they got an okay, they just rushed us, and they were all around us, hugging us.
I think Rachel got lost in the crowd at one point in time. It was kind of funny, but everyone was just so excited to be there, and it was very special and exciting to actually just be involved in something like that. When we walked out of the English class, we walked into an open area of the school where they were teaching Kung Fu.
So Todd and I decided to join in.
And then mimicking their movements. It was interesting to see how fierce everyone was with their punches and everything they were doing and the movements. And for me, I was having such a great time, I couldn't stop smiling. So I could just tell that no one would have ever taken me seriously if I would have been in a fight with someone.
The most important thing that it taught me or reminded me was how important discipline is. Because these are the same children that were walking around so shy, not talking, but on command were shouting. The energy's there, it was controlled. And I think coming from a country where Ritalin's probably the #1 selling drug in America, it was refreshing to see what discipline does for children.
We came into a very beginner painting or art class. One of the little girls, who was probably 7 or 8 years old, turned around and she asked me to come up and help her. So I went around one of the desks, and she was drawing and then pointing to what she was drawing, and I was trying to tell her how to get some contour into this cylinder that she was trying to shadow and shade. And it was really fun to see them pick up on some of the techniques, just rubbing and different things that I didn't learn until much later. I can't even imagine drawing the things they were drawing at the ages that they were.
The next thing I did at the school was I was able to go in and see the drawing class. All these children, and they probably ranged from 8 to 15, and they were so intense and so into their drawings, rendering their drawings, and the subject matter was probably what shocked me the most. They were drawing aged faces and spheres. I had the opportunity to make a sketch of one of the students, which I have to say was nerve-wracking. I was so intimidated, and all the kids were around me, and I really felt like it was one of the first times that I wanted to impress them. I wanted to impress the students. I wanted them to think I was good, that I was talented, that I knew what I was doing, and it was a lot of pressure. This is something that I think I'm going to be thinking about a lot during this trip, especially the more portraits I do. You can render something very accurately, and that's good, and skill is good, but being able to make something with spirit and capturing the essence of a person is something that I don't even know if I'll know if I've accomplished until 5 years from now.
I was able to learn some calligraphy while I was here, which was really great because it's such a traditional art form here in China. The order of the lines in calligraphy and the brush strokes, it's important. It starts from left and goes to right and also top to bottom.
Todd and I were invited then to participate in a traditional Chinese painting class. I didn't realize how different it was from what I do. One must start with black ink first. You know, when I saw the drawing that we were supposed to copy, I wanted to start with the lighter colors, but we were instructed to use the dark ink first.
So all the dark areas were laid down first with just the black ink. Then when we came afterward, watered down the ink a lot and came through with just some maybe more subtle lines for the distant mountains.
This is one of the things that I learned. When I was taking the brush and moving it down, I always think that, you know, with your brush, you should have a full stroke. And it wasn't until someone else told me that letting it run out is beautiful. I didn't know that. Taking that class made me reevaluate what is good in art, because I would have tried to cover the page. But in traditional Chinese painting, you leave the white showing. You let the brush run out of ink. I wouldn't have thought that that was good. And it just made me really question, based on everything that I've learned about through my life about painting, is it good? I don't know.
While I was here, I decided that I wanted to have a Chinese name. I figured out the name Tong Da with the help of some friends here. Tong, which would be the last name, is actually the name of a famous Chinese monk. And my name being Thompson, his name seemed appropriate because his name was actually Tong Sun, which sounds very similar. And Da also seemed appropriate because my first name is Todd and it sounds similar. So the word Da means prosperous. Tong Da is the name that we figured out for that.
So with the help of my Chinese friend, we came up with Sun Rei. Sun is the last name of the monkey, and Rei means lucky, or luck. So that became my name, Sun Rei. Seeing Professor He paint or draw or write, which I don't even know which word I used to describe calligraphy, was such a moving experience. Once he finished, he looked at me and told me what it meant. You know, the clarity of his eyes and the way that he talked to me as if I could understand him. I just kept nodding because I didn't want to disappoint him and be like, what? What's he saying, you know? But I just kept looking at him and it really choked me up. And then I got the meaning of what he'd written. The calligraphy was the word Shen, which means in Chinese, spirit. In reference to art, it means inspiration. And he was wishing me inspiration in my work. And I got really choked up. I mean, how could you not? But it was like the purest gift I've been given in a long time.
I was watching a beginning art class, and one of the students asked me to come over and help her with what she was doing. And so I kind of taught her how to do a few things, and then she asked me to show her friends that were on her row. She asked me to show them how to do the same thing that I was showing her. So it was kind of a neat experience that I, maybe touched someone's life and helped them, and maybe it's something that she'll remember, because it's certainly something that I'll remember.
I'm feeling really excited about this trip, and everything's going so well. It's hard though, it's like such hard work for me. It's basically like a 9-to-5 job that lasts for like 12 hours. The amount of things I'm getting to see here and do it's not normal. And I just want to make sure that I appreciate it. But it is very difficult to, it's just tiring. Tired. Going to sleep now. Today we visited a local artist here in Dunhuang, Mrs. He. She is an artist that does paper cutting, which is a very traditional Chinese art. It's usually a folk art that's done in rural areas.
When I saw her work, it completely changed my mind about the whole paper cutting art process. It's not just, folding up some paper and making some simple cuts like the lanterns that you see, or in America, maybe in Chinatown, or at different festivals in the New Year and things like that. The figures and the animals, and they all have to do with Chinese culture.
She learned this art from her grandmother when she was 14 years old. She found a little bit of fame in her early 20s, but had an accident when she lost her index finger of her right hand. Of course, you can imagine that this is really difficult for her to use scissors, which is one of the main tools in paper cutting. She quit paper cutting for about 10 years and only returned when she started using it for decoration in her children's rooms.
We spent a great deal of time today looking at the sketches that she had done from the Mogao caves. She's actually a very accomplished figurative and portrait artist. Just seeing these sketchbooks was another amazing part of what she does.
She does these in preparation for her paper cuts. That's not even her art. I would do something like that and I'd be like, $50. But that's just in preparation for the real art that she makes later. I haven't yet had a chance to see the Mogao caves in person. I've seen images around, though, throughout the city of Dunhuang, but I think seeing her paper cuts are the first time that I've actually been able to feel what might be going on inside those caves. Most of her images are inspired by the caves, and she used to frequent them when she was younger and, sketch them and draw them and then come out and make paper cuts out of them.
There was so much of her art here that I think all of us were so impressed with. We were literally flocking around and just wanted to see more and more and more. And she ended up giving me one of the pieces, and it was of a dragon. It is just so cool. It was really, really special to me that she gave that to me.
I was blown away when I saw these intricately cut pieces of thin paper that she must have spent hours on. One of her paper cuts that she won a prize for, she spent up to 6 months cutting. I was so grateful when she demonstrated her paper cutting with her scissors and then gave the piece to me. To me?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And this is Dunhuang. After we were looking at her artwork, her son wanted to come out and play some songs for us. He was playing the guitar and singing.
I haven't really felt homesick since I've been here. I'm really used to having music around me. I work at a music school. When she brought her son in to play for us, it brought me to tears. I couldn't even take it. It was definitely, music breaks down all barriers.
I looked over at Rachel at one point in time and she had tears in her eyes. I think it was very moving for everybody in the room when he just came out and played this music for us.
就是和你一起慢慢变老，一路上收藏点点滴滴的欢笑，留到以后坐着摇椅慢慢聊。我能想到最浪漫的事，就是和你一起慢慢变老，直到我们老的哪儿都去不了，你还依然把我当成手心里的宝。
I've got to say that today was one of the best days that I've had since we've been here. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we got to spend so much time with another person who does the same trade as we do. Spending that time with another artist like this, that does something completely different, it was really, really great.
So today was awesome. We went to the woman's home who does paper cutting, and hung out all day. It was so fun.
Another thing that happened for me today that I thought was so excellent was that when we were at lunch, everyone was talking in Chinese and back and forth and around this big round table. And at one point in time, I had picked out a few things that someone was saying, and people were talking, and I remember asking someone at the table, "Is this what they said?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Wow, you're picking up Chinese."
Today we snuck into a rehearsal of a local dance performance here in Dunhuang. It's the Dancing Murals. While they were rehearsing, we got to practice some of our sketching on the floor and around. It was really a beautiful thing to see dancers running around and practicing and stretching and getting ready for the performance tonight.
It was a precursor to what I was actually going to see this evening.
The Dancing Murals is an ancient dance in Dunhuang. It's based on the frescoes made in the Mogao cave.